Today I want to talk about sexy. Not necessarily sex, mind you, but things that are sensual, desirable, tempting, especially as it relates to cinema. So with sexy on the mind, let's explore the Mount Rushmore of the sexiest movie moments. The first moment on that mountain was given to us by quite possibly the biggest sex symbol of all time, Marilyn Monroe in The 7-Year Itch. The scene is simple enough. New York, a man, a woman, a white dress and a breeze. Of course it doesn't hurt when the woman, or should I say the girl, as is her character's credited name, is Marilyn Monroe. While walking down the street in the Big Apple, the girl hears a subway rumbling underground. Confidently and deliberately, she quickly hops on top of the subway grate, holds her ground, and waits for the subway's breeze to blow. When it does, her white dress is sent upward, revealing her legs, to which she coos, "Isn't it delicious?" The man takes a peek at her from behind. Actually, it's more like a considerable leer. Don't know if I'd blame him though. It's Marilyn freaking Monroe. I'd probably sneak a peek too. A few seconds go by, a few words are spoken, and she is still standing on top of the grate, looking down below in anticipation of another train. As an audience member watching this, it's almost like a Hitchcock film, if Hitchcock directed romantic comedies, in that it keeps us in suspense, eagerly awaiting, just like the girl, for the next train to rush by. And when it finally does, it's like the most sensuous deja vu you can ever hope to have. The breeze, the dress, the legs, all over again. The scene blows off the screen because of Monroe. You can't take your eyes off her. Her beauty and charm make it impossible. The actress was already seen as a sex symbol before The 7-Year Itch, but the movie, and in particular this scene, permanently etched her into pop culture. The flowing white dress that she wore, by the way, was sold at auction in 2011 for $5.6 million. The 7-Year Itch was released in 1955, and the actual scene itself is about 2 minutes long, but still, to this day, it's not only one of the sexiest moments ever captured on film, it's one of the most iconic movie scenes of all time. So from the mid-50s, we jump to the early 80s to find our next movie moment, and number 2 on the mountain, Phoebe Cates in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So what do you get when you have a pool, a red bikini, and a big brown-eyed exotic beauty in slow-mo? Well, you get a fantasy sequence that has become one of the most famous scenes to survive the 80s decade. A young man comes home after a mundane day at the job to find his little sister and her gorgeous friend in the pool. He heads to the bathroom where he starts to fantasize about the beauty in red coming out of the pool, soaking wet, unfastening her bikini top, and making out with him. A wet dream is born. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a classic. Sean Penn's Jeff Spicoli is one of the funniest stoner characters ever. There are so many funny moments, hysterical quotes, and future stars in the movie, but I bet you if you ask any male who grew up in the 80s, what's the first thing you think of when you hear Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Without a thought, he's gonna say, Phoebe Cates in the pool scene. Or he might say, Phoebe Cates in the red bikini. He might quote a Spicoli line, but that's only if his girlfriend or wife is next to him. Otherwise, he's gonna say, that hot girl who takes off her top and then makes out with that dude from Beverly Hills Cop. Fast Times at Ridgemont High was released in 1982. For over 30 years, this scene has been copied, parodied, and celebrated. Phoebe Cates has since retired from acting and started a family with Oscar winner Kevin Kline. But for many, she'll always be Linda Barrett, the dream girl in the red bikini who emerges from the pool and enters into your fantasies. Ah, Kevin Kline, you lucky bastard. I'm a guy. I have 2 working eyes. I think women are incredibly sexy. Beautiful face, soft skin, curves in all the right places. Can make a man lose focus and completely forget what he's talking about. I'm sorry, what was I talking about?
Sexy movie moments.
Oh yeah. Sexiest movie moments. I would be remiss if I didn't do my due diligence and research all sexy scenes, including the ones where the men are the sexual focal point. I found a few, but there was one in particular that I believe to be worthy enough to stand next to Marilyn and Phoebe. So the third moment on that mountain was born in the early 90s. Brad Pitt and Thelma and Louise. A very young Brad Pitt plays a robber by the name of J.D., who ends up in Thelma's hotel room. The small-time thief manages to part ways with his obvious nuisance of a t-shirt, strutting around in his six-pack and toned-up arms, and proceeds to play hot hands with Thelma. He then jumps on her bed like a 5-year-old, right before he details how he robs liquor stores. His shirt is still off, by the way, but he does manage to put a cowboy hat on his head during this explanation. Once his story is over, he takes the hat off, jumps back into bed with Thelma, and gives her the ultra-cheesy line, "I may be an outlaw, darling, but you're the one still in my heart." Coming out of my mouth, I'd probably get laughed at right to my face. Coming out of Brad Pitt's mouth, he gets to have sex with Gina Davis. Thelma and Louise helped make Brad Pitt and those freaking abs into an international, multi-million-dollar, bona fide movie star, and permanent staple on everybody's sexiest man alive lists. How does Brad Pitt get that six-pack anyway? For our fourth and final moment on the mountain, I decided to stay in the 90s. The scene is from the cult movie From Dusk Till Dawn, and the woman bestowing upon us this visual gift is Salma Hayek. So how do you tame a room filled with outlaws, bikers, and all-around tough-looking dudes? It's easy. Hire Cheeto and the Tarantula and have them start playing their very seductive song After Dark. From there, find a woman who looks, behaves, moves, and breathes like Salma Hayek. Have her rock a two-piece bikini and put her on stage. Also, give her a pretty big phallic symbol to play with, maybe something like a giant python around her neck. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Lastly, have her stick her foot in Quentin Tarantino's mouth as she pours beer down her leg. Add all that together, and you have one mesmerized room, not just from the actors in the scene, but from everyone watching the movie screen at the Cineplex, or on their television sets and computer monitors at home. Salma oozes so much sensuality you completely ignore the other sexy being in the room in George Clooney. She made Tarantino finally look like a decent actor, I can only assume because he wasn't acting. Hell, I drink cough syrup off Salma Hayek's feet, and I can't stand the taste of cough syrup. Or feet for that matter. So there you have it, my Mount Rushmore of sexiest movie moments. Marilyn Monroe in The 7-Year Itch, Phoebe Cates in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise, and Salma Hayek in From Dusk Till Dawn. If you don't agree with my list, let me know who you would put on your Mount Rushmore by leaving a comment below. Keep up with everything that Gong's channel has to offer by subscribing. We have new scary themed Mount Rushmores coming soon for October, Halloween month, as well as the debuts of more original web series in the very near future. See you next time.